Welcome to the Divorce Podcast, where we explore relationships, divorce, separation, and parenting apart. This episode is part of our new mini-series where we answer your questions, discuss current news and events, and share practical bite-sized tips. I'm your host, Kate Daly, a relationship counsellor, divorce specialist, and co-founder of Amicable, the online legal service for separating couples. This week, I'm delighted to be joined by Una Archer to discuss handovers, why parents and even children might find them difficult, and some simple things you can do to make them better. Welcome, Una.
Thank you, Kate. It's so good to be here.
It's lovely to have you, Una. So I'm going to just jump straight in here, and we're going to talk a little bit about handovers, how to make them easier and kinder for parents and children. So let's set the scene and let's just give us a little bit of an intro into why handovers are so emotionally charged moments for parents and children.
I think of handovers as a thermometer for how the separation is going. And often the emotional separation takes much longer than the physical, practical separation, and it's non-linear. We can think, we process things, and something happens and things come up. And if there is something that's kind of lacking there, I think it will be felt during the handover. And it can be practical things, it can be something emotional, and it can be things that we store in our nervous systems, especially if there is a trauma in the relationship. And I don't necessarily mean domestic violence. It can be that sense of being observed, being judged, like your parenting is constantly being commented on. And just thinking about having to go there, facing the other parent can just take you right back into how you felt when you were in the relationship.
So it can be a place where unresolved issues bubble up and sort of come out and pour out, I guess is what you're saying.
Yes, exactly that. Yes, Kate.
And you mentioned the nervous system then. So our nervous systems all get very hijacked and triggered when we're stressed. What are some of the practical techniques then that parents can take into handovers to help this pressure moment?
So I think it's important to start by checking in with yourself to see where your nervous system is at, because generally speaking, it can go two ways. Our energy is either going up if we go into more fight or flight type response where we just feel like we have to do something straight away, or kind of get into that tunnel vision. And so if our energy is going up, it's important to use that energy up. And I think it's a good idea to do something energetic, hoover, run, shake, dance, just something where we use our bodies, we move. And it can help us reset our nervous system. I'm not saying it's a magic pill, especially if it's, if you're going through complex separation and there are conflict in the background, but just in that moment, it can help to take off that edge. It can help you come back into the present moment and be more present with your children and what they need in that moment. But also, we can go the other way where we feel like our nervous system is shutting down. We're going into more freeze type response. And so in that case, we would do something opposite. I think it's a good idea to just lie down on the sofa or on the floor and breathe and allow your body to feel supported. Allow your nervous system to register what's it like to feel that support under your body. And then maybe start moving very slowly. Just rotate your head or your hands or your legs just a little bit where you feel like, oh, okay, I can take that small next step. How does that sound, Kate? Does that make sense?
Yeah, so I guess it's building in some time to actually mentally prepare, not just physically, logistically prepare for the handover, isn't it? So checking in with your body, how does it feel, noticing how it feels, and then applying one of those two. Either you're up and so you dance and shake and jig, or you're down so you feel the support of the calmness of the breathing and the breath. So yeah, that definitely makes a lot of sense. So then if we think about the role of handovers, so let's say you've prepared, Is there a way of conceptualizing or thinking of the handover that would help you frame it and position it either for yourself or for children in a more conducive and positive way?
It can be helpful to think in terms of where children coming and children going, how does that process sit? So if we look more broadly into our relationship with our children, and I love a quote by John Bowlby. He's the father of attachment theory. He said, "Our lives are best organized by a series of daring adventures to and from a secure base." So if we think of us as a secure base and our children going out adventures and then coming back to reconnect, I think it's such a beautiful process because, I think as parents, we'll love those moments when they come back, but they can't come back if they don't go. And so they go to school, they go to nursery, they go to their friends. And if we put that going and coming back into be with their other parents and coming back, I feel maybe that can take some sadness. I don't want to sugarcoat it, but just maybe it's a helpful thought for some parents.
I guess there are some obvious things as well, Una, aren't there? Like, if it is upsetting for you when you're doing a handover and effectively you're saying goodbye to your child, it's some of the obvious things like not letting your emotions dictate how a child might feel. So trying to keep yourself in check so that you can provide a smooth transition for your child and just being upbeat about them going to the other parent and being really kind of calm and positive about the stay they're going to have. What about if children are reluctant to go? Are there any strategies parents can use in that scenario? Because I always think that's a tough one, because if your child doesn't want to go, it's very easy for the receiving parent to say, oh, well, it's because, you're doing that and you're telling them that they don't want to go. But often it's just for whatever reason, that child on that particular day doesn't want to go. So how do you deal with that?
I think it's such a good question, and it's a really complicated question because I think it's important to acknowledge that sadly, not all parents are safe for their children. And sometimes, hopefully very rarely, it is a sign that something that we really need to listen to and pay attention to. Sometimes children they're settled where they are and they don't want to move. Let's face it, transitions are energy confusing for everyone, for parents and for children. So I think it's important to think about not in terms of what's happening today, but more broadly in relationship. And I think everything that we covered so far can help. Another thing that can help with transitions, and especially if children don't want to go, and it applies in situations that are safe, are having rituals, connecting and disconnecting rituals. And it can be something very simple, like having a certain snack or, I don't know, watching an episode of your favorite show before you go. It's just the thing that happens every time. And you signal, it's part of our life. It's part of our relationship. It's okay to do that. And also something that you mentioned earlier, being prepared, giving yourself time, because if I can talk from my experience, if it's something you don't want to do, you then end up putting it off, and then it ends up being rushed, and then it ends up being even more stressful than it needs to be. So just giving yourself time to prepare yourself and also to help your child to prepare can make a difference.
So I like that idea of ritualizing the sort of going and coming. That's a really nice idea, isn't it? Of just creating an expectation that this is what's going to happen, and it just feels safe. It kind of feels chunky. I don't know, like a nice big thick jumper that you're going to put on, and off you go. So I really do like that idea. How can parents stay child centered in these really tough moments? If, there's lots of different practical things that parents can do, like being positive, like creating the rituals, as you've said, like preparing yourself mentally and emotionally, as we've talked about. What are the sort of general guidelines and the rules then for staying child centered at these tough moments?
What I find really helpful is to just acknowledge that the transition moment is a delicate moment. The child is transitioning from one secure base to another secure base. What I find helpful is to have a metaphor of analogy of penguins passing the egg. And I'm not sure if you've seen it. It was in maybe March of the Penguins or one of the nature documentaries. There was this moment where it requires such a enormous attention and careful choreography from two parents when one penguin is coming in from the ocean and the other one is waiting. And the one who's waiting has their egg on their feet under that fold of their skin. Can you imagine how careful they have to be as they're passing that egg? And there was this tragic moment. They lost their focus just for a split second and the egg was frozen. And just kind of remembering that can help parents say, okay, this is the main thing that I need to focus right now, and not go into discussing holidays, routines, finances, any of that. And if you ask the question, I think it's best to just say, look, I'll get back to you, or email me, or something like that. Like, do not ignore or get involved in the conversation, but just acknowledge and say, give that short answer that sends a message. Yes, I hear you, but let's park it for now. We can pick it up another time.
That's such a lovely analogy to finish on, Una. Thank you very much for sharing. For separation and co-parenting support, please visit amicable.co.uk, where you can explore our resources or book a free advice consultation. And of course, you can find me on LinkedIn and hear about new podcast episodes by subscribing for updates and visiting thedivorcepodcast.com, or find us on your favourite listening platforms. And finally, we'd love to hear how we can help you further. So please share any questions about divorce, separation, or co-parenting with us at hello@amicable.co.uk, and they might find their way on to one of our special features. Thank you very much, Una, and thank you for listening.